Okay, well, welcome back to the last and final video of this build. It is completely finished. It's sitting behind the camera over there on the other side of the room. We'll get the camera turned around here a little bit. We'll get some good close-ups of it and other things. We'll talk about it a little bit. But before I go any further, I've got someone to thank for this, and that would be Solomon. Solomon, you know who you are. He's got his own channel, Life After Work. That would be Life After Work. Without his kindness and generosity, none of this would have ever happened. A few years ago, when I first got started back into modeling, I had my eye on this thing. I seen this thing on websites and stuff, and I thought, man, I would like to have that. But you know, money and things like that, it's an expensive model. And I thought, well, maybe someday I'll get the money together and I'll get it. And around the middle or the beginning of January of 2016, I got a message from Solomon, and he said he had this model and he wanted to know if I would like to have it. He said he would probably never get around to putting it together. Well, I about fell out of the chair when he offered it to me, and I just couldn't turn him down. And like I said, you know, the kindness and generosity out of his heart to send this thing to me, I was overwhelmed. So thank you, Solomon, for this model. And this one's for you, Solomon. So, and then second, I'd like to thank everybody that has stuck with me through this thing, you know. It's my incentive to keep going. When I see the comments that I get and the views that I get on it, it makes me want to come down here and work on it. Okay. So I want to thank everybody that has watched it. I know I've got a few bad comments here and there. You know, that's no big deal. You're going to get that no matter what you build, who you are, or what. There are just people in life out there that are not happy. And, you know, I learned a long time ago from my mama and my papa, if you can't say something nice, then don't say nothing at all, you know. But to get on someone's video and bash what they're doing, or bash, you know, something. I had a guy bash my Dresden. You know what? And then you go to their channels and they don't have nothing. So you're just going to have to deal with people like that. So don't let that be an incentive not to put up videos. I know it does bother some guys, and once in a while it does get under my skin, and I deal with it, you know. But, and you have the power. I've blocked about 3 guys over my span of doing models, you know. But anyway, getting back to where I was at, you know, I got a lot of guys that's been following right along from the very beginning, been leaving me some nice comments, and I really do appreciate that. Alright, so I'm reading from a cheat sheet here. Alright, I actually finished this around 3:30 on August the 15th of 2017, just a couple weeks ago. So that's where I am at with these videos. I've still got 2 more videos to go up before this one. You know, this won't be up for a few more weeks yet. So I actually finished it on August the 15th. Alright, now let's talk a little bit about some of the things about this. About how much primer and paint I used. Alright, well, I bought this bottle of Vallejo surface primer. Okay, that was the black primer I used all through the build. And I went through a little over half of that bottle. About half of that is gone. And this was a 200 milliliter bottle. So that'll give you some kind of idea of how much primer you're going to need. Now for paint, I bought this model color, okay? Dermafield Gray. And I think I got this from Scale Hobbyist. This was a 6-pack. There was 6 bottles in here, okay? And then I ordered 2 more because I just was at a loss of how much paint I was going to need. So I had a total of 8 bottles, these little 17 milliliter bottles, okay? And this is the model color by Vallejo, okay? This you have to thin, all right? So I went through 3 bottles of this. There is just a couple drops left in this one bottle. So I've gone through 3 bottles of it, okay? So if you're going to paint this model, you'd be probably safe to order 4, maybe 5. Now if you go with the other type of Vallejo, which is Model Air, which doesn't need to be thin, well, you might think about twice as many bottles, okay? So the 6-pack of, if you can get it in Model Air, would probably do you, all right? But because I had to thin this, I get a lot more out of a bottle, all right? So figure 3 to 4 bottles of that. I would order 4 if I was going to paint this model again, all right? And for my thinner, I was using the Vallejo Airbrush thinner, all right, right there. And I went through, it's down to about here right now. Now, a lot of this, sometimes I was cleaning my gun out with this, or my brushes or whatever. But for the most part, when I came to cleaning out my airbrush, I was using alcohol, okay? Okay, we're gonna edit this part here a little bit. I'm gonna jump in here with this. You know, I was pretty much following the color call out on their sheet for what they, let me get my glasses here, for what colors they were saying to use. Now, they got every color that they call out here in a Mr. Hobby. Now, I can't get that around here, but I could get on the internet and order it like I did my Vallejo. But, and every color is also in a Vallejo color. Now for this field gray, you know, I used the Vallejo. Model Master doesn't make it. Tamiya has it and Humbrol has it. Now, like I said, I went with the Vallejo. You could probably go ahead and order the Mr. Hobby or the Tamiya or the Humbrol, and it might be a different shade. I don't know how close their colors are all together, you know. So it's something you're going to have to experiment with, because if you remember at the very beginning of this build, I wasn't real happy with this color. I didn't know if I was going to like it or not because it had that tinge of green in it. But now that it's finished, I'm really pleased with it. I think that was the proper color to paint this. Now, like I said, what shade of color will it be in a Mr. Hobby? I don't know. But that's the color I bought. I went with their color call out, and this is what I got. And now some of the other things, I used Tamiya. I went over and bought little jars of Tamiya for a couple other things. The shells, you don't have that much other color to put on too many things. So yeah, you know, this is my color. You pick what you want. It's your model. You do what you want. But if you do some research, you will find out that the Americans, the Germans, the British, they all had some shade of this field gray, I guess you could call it. All the tanks and things that I've seen in the motorized vehicles had a sort of greenish tint to it, okay? So, and like I said, you look through all this research in these museums and stuff of these guys rebuilding these tanks and trucks and things, and you will see a shade of a green on everything. So this came out pretty good. I was pretty pleased with it. But like I said, you know, if it's not your color, maybe the Mr. Hobby. And maybe it's a little bit different, a little bit different shade. It's something you can experiment with. You know, that's up to you. But I just thought I'd throw that in there. Like I said, I pretty much followed along with what they called for, and I went, because I've heard a lot of good things about Vallejo paint. That's why I went with Vallejo. You know, and as far as the primer goes, I've seen a lot of guys swear by Rust-Oleum or something like that from the hardware store. That's fine. You know, it's whatever you want to use. But I'm kind of, like I said, old school when it comes to painting. If my base color is going to be by Vallejo, then I'd want to put a primer on by Vallejo. Okay? I follow on through my model with the product that is made for that color or whatever. Okay? I'm pretty goofy about that kind of stuff. You know, I don't start mixing and matching different brands and products and things like that. I pretty much follow through from start to finish with one brand, you know. And you know, you got to be careful if you start using enamels. You know, when I cleared this thing, I got 3 to 4 coats of dull coat clear on everything, and that is by Testers, and that's a lacquer based paint. You got to be careful with that. You start practice on something else first. You do not want to wrinkle up your finish or your paint if you did this in enamel, because that's a volatile substance there, and it can eat away at your enamel paint job if that's what you're going with. But yeah, that was another thing. I went through about 3 cans of that, them small cans of Testers dull coat. So, and the reason I put a clear on it is protects the finish. You know, if you didn't put that dull coat on there and you went over and happened to bump your fingernail against the paint job, it'll chip it off really well. But that clear protects everything, protects them decals, protects your paint job, everything. All right? All right, so let's get on with the rest of the show. Okay, now before I get any comments about what I just said, about following through with one particular brand all the way through the model, and then I come along and I put a Testers clear coat on it. And you're probably saying, well, why don't I follow what I said and use a Vallejo clear coat? I've had very good success with this Testers. It's probably the one exception to my rule. If I'm going to clear something, I use this Testers clear coat. I've had very good success on it. All my models I build get sprayed with a Testers clear coat. Okay. So don't be writing me a comment, well, I'm not following along. You know, like I said, I was old schooled and I just, you know, use the same brand of product all the way through. Test it out though. Like I said, I had a piece of scrap plastic that I primered it and then painted it with the color. Give it a day or two to dry before you apply your clear. Let it dry out. But I tested it out to make sure I wouldn't have any kind of reaction. There was one model I built one time when I went to the hobby store, Hobby Lobby, and bought some off-the-shelf clear. And I think it was on the Blue Nose, and I had real bad problems. It never did dry out. It was 2-3 weeks, and I could still leave a fingerprint in it. I had to strip it down and redo it. So, like I said, this Testers, I've had super good results with it, you know, but that's me. You know, you, like, once again, use what you want to use, but try it out first. Get yourself a piece of scrap plastic you keep around with your primer and then your color coat, and then whatever type of clear you want to use, try it out first. Make sure you don't have any kind of reactions. All right, so that's, like I said, that's one exception to the rule that I've got. I stick with that because I've got good results with it. All right, now as far as the model itself, let me tell you, this thing went together like a dream. I know I had some complaints here and there. I had a few glitches in the directions, which I pretty much showed you guys throughout the build. But for the most part, I'd recommend this to anybody in a heartbeat. This model went together so well, so precise, that it's worth the money. It really is. And I'm going to show you some things when I went to put this last section on, how tight a fit everything came out to be, you know. So I would recommend this in a heartbeat to anybody. This was a nice model. It's a good looking model when it's on display. I'm sitting here looking at it on the other side of the room, and I tell you what, this would look good on anybody's shelf. I know there's quite a few guys out there commenting to me that we're going to get one, or they do have one. And one guy commented, well, he didn't know now that he's seen me put it together. Don't let that bother you at all. You know, put it together. It's a very nice model. Now that I put out a series on it, you can see a couple of things you're going to have to watch for. Like with the decals. You know, I had some problems with them. At the end of the build with that last section, I had some problems in the directions, you know. But it was minor stuff, you know, really. It really was. The gun really went together well. And if you noticed watching it, I didn't really follow the directions a whole lot. I jumped around. I did a lot of things that were supposed to be saved for the very last step that I already had done. And a lot of that had to do because of the painting of the model. You have to take that into consideration when you're putting this thing together. How am I going to paint these parts? How am I going to get inside here and do this and that? So that's why I skipped around and did a lot of this stuff, pre-assembled parts that I was supposed to hold off on. So with all this being said, I think we'll get the camera turned around and I'll get you some shots of it, and then I'll take the camera off of the tripod and try to get you some good close-ups of it. Really came out great. It really did. I don't have nothing to be ashamed of or to try and hide. You know, if you want to see mistakes in your model, you get a camera like this and you do close-ups and you'll see things pop out. If something pops up, man, I don't know. I did the best I could with what I had, and it came out great. I don't really see any mistakes at all. I don't see any seam lines that I took care of or nothing. Everything just went together so well, so flawlessly. So, yeah, you know, you want something to put on display and amaze some of your friends and stuff, this is it. Alright, so I've been having a few questions asking me, where do I go from here? And I keep saying there's a special type of model I want to get. I'm not going to say it because I've been having trouble locating a nice one. I think I finally found one, but it's going to take a lot of changes on my part to get it to what I want it to be. And it is a wooden model, and it measures, I think, 4 feet long, 48 inches. So I'm contemplating it. It is an expensive model. And if I do this, I'm going to probably have to make some changes to my channel. I know I've said I would never do this, but I might have to go ahead and monetize my channel and see if I can't get a couple bucks out of YouTube, you know, to offset some of this stuff. I had to almost practically give up my other hobby, my stamp collection, because I can't afford both. You know, just it's out of my reach. I love my stamp collection. I've been doing it for years and years and years, and now all of a sudden I've just fallen off of it. But yeah, if I do this, I'm probably going to have to make some changes to my channel. I know I don't like doing that. I don't like watching videos where guys have got commercials pop up or them little banners. But I got to do what I got to do. The wife's been on me about this. You know, if you're going to do this, why not try and get a couple bucks out of it, you know. I'm not asking anybody for anything. I'm not doing a Patreon or anything like that. But if I can get a couple bucks maybe from YouTube, I'd be happy. And I know it's not going to be much because I'm not that big of a modeler, you know. I did hit one of my goals, and that was, I got over 3,000 subscriptions, and I was pleased with that. I'm pushing, you know, over 800 and something thousand views, you know, so I'm not going to make a killing out of it, but it might be just enough to offset a few expenses, you know. It's like I said, this model I'm looking at is in the $300 range, you know. So, but for right now, I'm going to take a break. I think I've been at this for, what, 5 months building this model. I have got to do some work on that other side of the basement. So I got to get some money together and get that started. So the models are going to be put on hold for a little while. Probably once winter gets here and I get stuck in this house, then I'll be back with another model. But you guys, you got to give me a break. You know, this thing here, with what I done, added to them railroad tracks and the display and all that, I've got well over 2,000 parts in this model. Might not sound alike. I know some of them guys buy them model ships with the photo etch, and you can easily hit 2,000 parts. And then anybody that's done that knows this takes time. It takes a lot out of your free time and the family time and things like that. All right, so I think that's enough being said about this model. You know, like I said, get it. It's a nice model. Directions have a little bit to be desired, but like I told you before, it is no deterrent not to put this model together. I have not put together a model yet where I haven't had some kind of issue with the directions. All right, so if you got the money, you got the time, I recommend this highly to anybody. And once again, thank you, Solomon. I really do appreciate this. The wife, I brought her down here the other day to look at it, and she's not into this kind of stuff, but she was blown away with what she saw and what I'd done. All right, so let me get the camera turned around, and we'll get a final look at the model all complete. Thanks for watching. Okay, there she is, 100% complete, and I'll show you why in a minute. I got the camera sitting pretty far down, close to the floor, so I can get you on the same plane as the model. And I'm probably within 2.5 to 3 feet of it, and I really got to back out to get the whole thing in. But and still I don't have in all the base. So let me zoom in a little bit here. We'll start here at the back with all that I got done. Let me tell you something about this rear end here. Tell you what, there's a spot down in under here, underneath this control room that they got, and this railing on these railroad cars. Let me tell you, that is sitting within probably 1 millimeter or 2 of touching them railings. Right here, it's within a couple millimeters of touching this bridge. 1 millimeter or 2 of touching this catwalk here, of touching that bridge. That's how precise of a model these guys put together. And when you build all this, you're building it with these 2 ladders that we're sticking down, and they come down just, they're within a nanometer of sitting right on that small bridge. This just, you know, this whole back end here comes down, is within a couple millimeters of that rear railing. That's how precise these guys made this thing. But it did. It came together real good. Now let me tell you something. I went and stuck this rear platform on, had it glued down, and I came around the back of it and was looking down the model, and it was all cattywampus. And I took a measurement of back here from the railroad the railroad track up to the bottom of this platform, and I went to the other side and took a measurement, and I was like 3/8 of an inch off, almost a half an inch. And I thought, what the heck is going on here? What did I do? Well, come to find out, this bridge here and the one up on the other corner wasn't properly seated into its railroad car. It was resting on top of it. It wasn't down in the slot. So once I screwed around trying to get that back down in its slot and the other one, then everything leveled out, and then I took measurements back here, and I'm within a half a millimeter of them both being the same size or the same distance. And let me back out a little bit again, or let me just take a little tour down the side of it. And that's pretty much how I'm going to display it with that barrel, about, like I said, 1/3 of the way up. I think she's looking good. She's looking fine. Let me back out here a minute. Well, let me do, I ain't got my act together here. Remember I talked about there was a couple parts. There was 4 of them. These right here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. One on each corner. And I was talking about how they, see if I can zoom in on that. Let me mess with the camera here. Okay, I was talking about how if I ever wanted to dismantle this thing, these 4 pieces stick out beyond this railing. They go through the railing, and they're probably sticking out over 1/4 of an inch or more, about 3/8 of an inch. So if you ever want to take this apart, dismantle it, because I don't really have the main bridge glued onto these railroad cars or these bridges here, and the bridges ain't glued onto the railroad cars. So I could dismantle this, but with them sticking out that much, now you got a 2-man operation where you have to wiggle and move around to get this from underneath that railing. So that's why I contemplated about putting them on. But once I put this rear section on, I thought, you know what? I'm not going to dismantle this. You know, there's really not a whole lot of places back here to grab this thing. It would be a 2-man operation to take this apart now. So I don't think it's probably ever going to come apart. If I go to move it, I'm just going to have to make sure it's braced real good. Okay. Also, and we're going to take the camera off of the tripod here in a little bit, and I'll get you some close-up shots. But I also went ahead and left it so it would roll. And by getting them other two bridges back in their original location, it rolls much easier. Okay, and I'm going to leave it like that. We'll see what happens. All right, playing with danger. All right, so let me. Oh, here, I got one more thing. I got a comment from Mr. Hamilton, and he said that these shells, where they at? Right here, these shells didn't look like they were in proportion to the real gun. And I took one of them, this is one of the spare ones, and I went up here to the end of the barrel, and it just barely fits in there. All right, so they got the diameter right. Now, whether they got the length right, I don't know. That's one thing I didn't do with this gun or any of the parts, was take measurements and see how they scaled up to the real thing. Yeah, the shells do look look like they could have been maybe 1/4 inch longer. They do look awful small, but because if you remember, there was pictures of these. They look like they're about 7 foot tall. So I don't know if you scaled these up. I'm over here on the other side of the room putting that away. If they scaled them up, would that come out right? I don't know. And all that work that went on down inside between these two main bridges, all them valves I put in there, that catwalk that went in there, the railing went in there, these boxes, most of that is hidden. You can't see none of that. If you stood here and looked down in there, maybe with a flashlight, you could probably see it. There's a lot of work went on inside there. Nobody's ever going to see it. So, all right, let me get the camera off of the tripod, and we'll try taking some close-ups of it. That's the only way to do it. If I try to move this tripod around, it's just going to shake the camera. But I'm going to try getting you some good close-ups of it, nice and slow. So hang on a minute. Okay, so here's my base. I got that dirt in there, and then I took these little tufts of grass and put them along the edge every so often. Put a couple of them together, two different colors. Just kind of spread them out, just like that was the edge of where they shoveled the dirt to. You know, that was the end. From there on out, it would be grass. So that's that. Now let's get down here and see what we can do here. Trying to do this nice and slow. But you know how it is when you get older, you get these shaky hands. Like I said, if you got any mistakes, this is where they're going to show up at. And there's where they came down to, like I was talking about. I wasn't sure where those rear pieces were going to wind up. And you see my little pieces there that I kept worrying about? I still got all 4 of them, or 8 of them. 4 on each end. They're still there. I think she came out pretty nice. I'm really pleased with it. I've got nothing to complain about. Let me show you this. Once again, how precise this model is. Watch the rear of the breech here, how close it comes. Look at that. That's within a couple millimeters. And like I was just talking, you know, there you are. You look down in there. Let me raise this barrel up. And you really can't see nothing down in there that you've done, you know. Alright, so let me put the camera back on the tripod. We'll see what we can do with that. Okay, we're back on the tripod. By putting these 4 last pieces on, I used every piece there was. It would have been so easy to leave off a couple little things here and there. Like this ladder here had 2 little pieces of plastic sticking out to space it right. It would have been so easy just to leave them off. Nobody would have known, but I didn't. I used every piece that they gave me that was supposed to go on this model went on the model. You saw what I had left over, and those were just spare parts. They didn't need to go anywhere. So I am really pleased with it. I think she turned out to be one hell of a model. Get zoomed in here. We'll take a look at it. And there's another thing. Once again, I've talked about this before, but by me raising this bridge up 2 millimeters gave me that gap in there between that larger bridge and the smaller bridge. And it also raised it up off them tracks. Before, it was sitting right about, it was almost sitting right on them tracks, and it was resting on this one car back here. So by adding that 2 millimeters worth of plastic, brought that up to what I consider the right height. And there again, there's some little pieces I had that I said you need 16 of them, and I had 7 of them broke on the sprues. I had to repair them to get them on there. And I wish, you know, like I said, I left 2 doors open on this cabin, but they're on the other side. That was my mess up, you know, no big deal. But you can see they're there because I highlighted them. I put a wash around the edge of the doors. Trying to give you a nice slow shot of the whole thing. I'm going to check this out when I'm done. I don't know, I might put up some still pictures with it, but I think you guys get the idea. A lot of work went into this area right here, getting these long pieces of plastic, and they only attached on this end and this end, and they got a particular order they go into, and to get them on there, and then get all these little posts or whatever you want to call them on there. There's a lot of work went into this area right in here. And that steps on the end there, trying to get them all lined up. And you can see my little bit of weathering I did down there on them cars. You see it there along the bottom of the larger bridge. And the more you look at this area right here, there was discussion we had back in one of the videos about these look like hydraulic rams, that when they get it to where they want to set it up, they activate them hydraulic rams and lower this down onto the tracks to give it some stability. And talking about stability, let me show you this. If you guys have been following along with me, you remember a few videos back how these cars were rocking so bad. Well, look at this. I'm shaking it pretty good. That's good and solid because of the extra little work I did on them cars, putting that piece of flat plastic in there and things like that. A couple other little things I did really stabilize this thing. You really got to shake it to get it to move now. It's good and solid. All right. This is where it's going to stay for a while. It's on top of a dresser here on the other side of the room. It almost takes up the whole thing. So I'm going to leave it there for a while until I get my shelf built over here. I'm going to put up a couple shelves over here on the other side of the room. I want to make sure I get a shelf that is as wide as this display. If I have to put 2 pieces of shelf together, then I have to, because I do not want it overhanging. I put some little felt pads on the bottom. I forget how many I got. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 to each side, little felt pads. So it's not sitting directly on that dresser. All right, you know, like I said, I don't know what else to say. I'm really pleased with it. And like I said at the beginning, thank you, Solomon. None of this would have happened without you. There was a few times I was thinking about cussing you out, but no, I am really pleased with it. Like I said, I had this in my sights for a couple years. I just, you know, at the time I couldn't afford it. And like I said, he gave it to me around the beginning of January of 2016, but that's right when we were getting ready to move into this house. So it's set for a while. So here it is a year and a half later, and I finally got it finished. So, all right, I think that's about it. Okay, hold on a minute here. I've got to throw this section back in here. I've got to re-edit this video. I was sitting here watching, going through the video, watching what I was showing you and everything, and all of a sudden it dawned on me. I was talking about how precise a fit this was, how this ladder came to almost resting right on that car there, and how this control cabin up in here, or room, whatever you want to call it, how close it came to being on those railings of the car. I got to thinking about that. Had I not raised this up by 2 millimeters, if you haven't watched all my videos, you're gonna have to go back and look. By raising this up by 2 millimeters, gave me that clearance I needed for stuff under here. Had I not done that and laid that down on there, that ladder, I would have probably had to cut off a piece of the ladder. I don't know, it would have been on there. It would have been real close, and I think this would have been sitting on that railing. So you might want to take that into consideration. Like I said, they showed you in the here it is. They show you in this picture here of this thing. Let me open this up. I don't know what I'm looking at here. I can't see the lens. Let me turn that lens so I can see if you're seeing what I'm seeing. How they show that gap in there, right there. They show that gap being in there in this picture, okay? But when you assemble it, it's not there. So remember that. 2 millimeters of plastic in between the smaller bridge and the larger bridge, and that will, I think, help this fit better. I don't know, that'd have been darn close. I think everything would have been resting on each other back here, so that allowed it to raise this up a little bit. Now, I don't know, this part here is pretty stationary. It's just this ladder. I think it's probably just that ladder would have been touching it. Would probably made it tight to fit. No, that's correct. You know, by raising that up, it also raised this up. Yep. Here's another thing I got to say. You know, just don't watch this final video, and that's the only video you watched. If you're going to build this thing, you're going to have to watch all my videos, because there were things I talked about doing and then later on I didn't do, or things I didn't talk about and I did. You know, at least go through the video, all the videos one time before you go to assemble it, and you'll find out about some of the problems I had with some of these decals down here. There was a part that goes on, and then you put your decal on, now the part don't fit, or the decal don't fit. Things like that. So at least go through, if you're going to build it, you've already got it and you're starting to build it, go through the videos one time and take notes of some of the little problems I ran into. You know, take notes, and you should have no problem at all. But yeah, I would very definitely say you should put that 2 millimeters worth of plastic in there. All right, on with the show because it's about over. Okay, so here we are, aerial view. You know, in the beginning, when I first started building this, I had some doubts about this color. How I wasn't real pleased with it being called German field gray, and it's got a lot of green in it. But I'm telling you what, this is it. This is what this color should be. Now, I'm sure a lot of guys will disagree with me, say no, it should be more gray, this and that. That's fine, but this is my model. I am really pleased with the way that color turned out. And it really dulled it down once you put on that dull coat, you know. You get that dull coat on there, and it really draws it down a little bit. You can see my railroad cars right here where I did that wood. I was up in the air about that too. I didn't know if I should do that or not, but I'm glad I did. And the only thing, other than the silver on the barrels, that really stands out is this powder bag thing. It's the only color on the model. Well, you got the little bit of red, but like I said, I went with that red because it doesn't stand out as much as that yellow would. And then I put my other shell on the cart back here on the back. And these are not glued down. I can move them, take them off, and that I can take off. So there she is in all her glory, if you can consider this gun glory. But it is a piece of history. And, you know, I mean, how many guys have built Tiger tanks, you know, or the Bismarck? You know, so why not add this to your collection? Be the money well spent. All right. Once again, thank everybody for watching. It's been a pleasure talking to you, getting your comments, and everything else. So I don't know when I'll be back. Might be a couple months. Whatever. I'll keep you up to date with what's going on, but I have to spend some time on doing some honeydew stuff. Got to get some things done. All right, you can see in the background I'm finishing up the editing of this video here. This is a couple days later. I decided to go ahead and take some still pictures, and they'll be at the end of this. I think there's about 16 of them. I'm not sure, just about a minute and a half long. But it gives you a good close-up of some of the stuff. And yeah, I forgot to blow the model off again. You'll see a couple little specks of dust here and there. The thing is, you stand there and look at it, even wearing my glasses, I don't see it. But when you go start taking close-ups, this stuff sticks out like a sore thumb, so excuse that. So once again, this is going to be the end of it. There'll be no sound, no music, no nothing, just some still pictures. But once again, I want to thank everybody that's hung in there with me, and all the nice comments I got, and a couple bad ones. And again, thank you, Solomon. You know, like I said, your kindness and generosity made this happen. So here we go, on with the pictures.